Learn how to use a callback function to handle data that arises from an external request. In this example, we are going to simulate a text source instead of an external file to demonstrate how callbacks works for external requests. In this example, here is my boilerplate code. Since we don't have access to an external server or file, so we are going to be simulating a local text string with a simulated network response as well. So let's go on and start building the example. So the first thing first is I'm going to make a function called my displayer. And this is going to take the data and then to be responsible for displaying the results and outputting what I have via the DOM. Then once I have that, then I'm going to make another function and I'll call it getFakeFile, which is going to be responsible for getting our simulated response that I'm going to put. So, and this fake file is going to take a data called my callback. So inside this function, I'm going to add a setTimeout method since I want to add time to what I want to get and display on the screen. And then I pass the function. And now, inside this the setTimeout method, I'm going to set a status. In web term, this will be a network request. So if it is successful, you will get 200. If it is not successful, then you can get any other error, maybe 404 if it doesn't exist, or 401, or if you don't have permission, different kind of status code. So the one I'm going to simulate here is a successful one, and I will represent it as fake status in that variable. Then the fake response text, which is what I want to show, is going to be the next variable, and I will call this one car model Tesla Model 3, color red, and year 2026, which is the current year that we are. So now that I have these two variables inside my setTimeout method, then I want to check if what I have matches my code or it does not. And how do I do that? I'm going to check with a conditional statement. So I'm going to use if conditional statement to check. So I'm going to set up an if statement and say if fake status equals to 200, then what should happen? Then I want my callback to run this text. If not, else I want my callback to throw this error. Instead of to not fetch the file, let it just show us 404 not found. Now, after this, I want it to wait for 2 milliseconds, which is equivalent to 2 seconds. And at the end, I'm going to go ahead and now call the function itself. Get fake file. That is the function name that I have here. And then I will pass in my function where I want the display to happen, which is this one. And if you look at my screen after 2 seconds, you can see that now I have the fake response text. The thing is, when your website requires information, I'm talking about if you have a live application, a live website, for example, when they request information like maybe a file, an image, or user data, it takes time to travel across the internet. And as a result of that, since JavaScript doesn't always want to freeze the page while waiting, So it instead uses a callback. So it tells the network request, go fetch this data, and it will be carrying out that process underground so that it will not affect other things that you are trying to do on such a web page or such an application. And so the absolute moment it gets the information that you requested for back, then it will now run the callback in your code in order to present the results to you. So what we've done basically here is that we have set the targets. My displayer here is created to accept any text and push it to the HTML in order to display the result. So this function here initiates the request. And so this is designated to run this if it exists. That is, if the status code matches. If it does not match, then it will throw this error. For example, if I change this one to 201, what do you think is going to happen? Let's find out. You can see that nothing is displaying on the page. But if I update it here to the 201, then we should get the text back after 2 seconds. You can see it. So if it does not match, according to that if statement, we are saying that, okay, display an error message at 404.1. But if the status code matches, then use the callback to run the fake response text underground. And when the result is available, so generate the data and then display it to us. You might be wondering that what is the 200 status code? Well, it is the universal web code for success. That is, everything went perfectly. If you make a request, it means your request is successful. Now, in redevelopment, you can see we're just simulating this data. In redevelopment, you will use either XML HTTP request or fetch to speak to servers or to wherever you want to fetch information from. And then responses depending on the location or how far the information is over the internet, can take milliseconds or seconds, sometimes also depending on your internet speed. So the function of this get fake file as it is that it doesn't care your data is shown. It just fetches it and hands it over to this callback. So the callback is what is responsible for giving us the output of what we have at the end of the day. So this example perfectly illustrates a scenario whereby you email a car dealership to ask for a specific car in stock. And so you don't keep staring at your email for about 4 hours or 30 minutes that it takes them to respond. You send the email, leave your email address, and then when the dealers find the answer, they send the message directly to your address. So that is just an example of how this illustrator can be put in a real life scenario. So if you take a look at this modified code that we have here, if we replace the original XML HTTP request that I said, if we are in a live environment, if we replace it with a callback, it gave us the access to be able to simulate how this will work in real life using just a text, a fake response text that we set up in our code. So if the network failed and the fake status become 404, then the result that we are definitely going to get is that it will jump from the successful part and move to the else part of our if statement and then give us the output. So key things about this example is that external data files require a waiting period, and that is the reason why they must be handled asynchronously, because sometimes they can take milliseconds or even seconds depending on your network speed. So it also prevents your web application from locking up while waiting for servers to reply. So these are the advantages of asynchronous running when it comes to making external requests with callbacks in JavaScript.